Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, lovelies. Depends where you're watching from at this moment of the day. Really, I have two videos I want to tag here after a little brief or comments on them. One that touched me most is the interview granted on one of the presidencies, who admitted that yes, the Nigerian resources is being used to sponsor these or to finance these herdsmen. He was like, yes, herdsmen are Nigerians. Not all of them are bad. In fact, the way I'm saying it, I think I'm romancing it. I want you to listen to it, to hear it, and tell me what actually that man meant by saying that they use Nigerian money, having accepted that they use the Nigerian money to, take care of these guys, sponsor these guys. I didn't understand it. I want you to please watch this video. I'm going to tag first, to tell me what you think about it, that the Nigerians are using their Nigerian money, resources to sponsor these herdsmen, that even 40% killing in Nigeria is from them. So I couldn't understand this public interview granted to this man, and he was saying this, confidently and proudly. So watch this video and tell me what you think about it. So the next one is, I was excited on this other one, the second one, when I, listened to all the Senate members, being in line with Senator Baribe, saying the same thing Senator Baribe said, shouting and crying, lamenting on insecurity in Nigeria, talking about, not even community policing, making sure that the communities have their own vigilantes, like Omotekom in Southwest, So, one of them stood saying that, yes, the National Assembly have sinned against even God and humanity, that for God to have mercy upon them, that they have to seek for the presence of God, ask God for forgiveness of sins, and confess. Well, he knows the kind of sin he was saying that they have committed, and the National House of Assembly, the legislators, they were there listening to him. Nobody argued it. So the man was saying the fact, the truth, exonerating himself, making sure that God himself forgives him, So it was like he was doing his own confession there, right there. And he was telling them that they need to confess, they need to ask for the presence of God. He gave an instance, okay. For instance, they have gathered here now to discuss on the insecurity in the country and how to, strategize that, so that this issue of insecurity will be a history in Nigeria. But when they gather to talk this, instead of them to providing solutions and making out solutions that will help, to terminate this insecurity in Nigeria, that they will be fighting against each other among themselves. And at the end of the day, they will, they will leave the floor without any solution to the problem. Is it not the devil working? Is it not the devil controlling them? That's what the man was saying, that they need to seek for the presence of God. He quoted, I think, First Chronicle 20:20. That's what was where he quoted for them, So showing that this man, he knows what is going on there, and the way they have offended God, or how they have offended God, offended the land, offended humanity. And he said that they should seek for this face of God, and, ask God for forgiveness before they can achieve anything in this Nigeria. So as it stands now, I think it's not only Abaribe lamenting on the insecurity in Nigeria or the security failure in Nigeria. So the only aspect they are fighting him, even the presidency, is just because he said APC and the presidency, the fact they should resign because they promise and promise to Nigerians that they have the key to this insecurity and security, the key to this security, and up to now they've not been able to lock on the lock it. In fact, even they said they should be stoned if they couldn't execute, and he said now is the time. This is getting to 5 years, and nothing has been changed. Instead, they're worsening, so that they should be stoned. I think that is why they were like now trying to intimidate him. So one of them, I listened to him saying that, I read he saying that he granted bail for the IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu, and he should produce him. He should be in jail and this and that. Maybe they are trying to threaten him or whatever. So watch these videos. In fact,
why should federal government use resources for this country to accommodate Fulani men who are not Nigerians?
You see, as I said, we are already accommodating them. Do you delineate and then really know who is not a Fulani man from Nigeria? They are all Nigerians, because I said their identity, their own citizenship is Nigerian, even though we have relations all over the world, all over Africa. And so, presumably they are Nigerians. I think
some of the contributions we will make will border on repetitiveness. It is still very important because it underscores the reality, the very ugly reality we face. But let me join others in first commending you. Sitting here and having you state that this issue is so critical that all of us must weigh in clearly marks you out as a patriotic leader. And I'm not trying to patronize you. Because out of this legislature, there would be some who would imagine that you didn't need to bring this issue here. Because they would like these issues to be colored and made to look better than they really are. The reality is that when we come here, we must speak as senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We represent our component units, but here we are senators of the Federal Republic. And when we close the gaps, as we have closed right here today, I think our country is better for it. Mr. President, I would just like to speak on two issues. And the first would have to do with the state police. I never used to believe in the state police. I'm a local government practitioner, and I have watched in this country how local governments have been ambushed and undermined and rendered ineffective and inefficient by state government practitioners. So I never used to believe at all in state police. I've always thought that the same fate that has attended local governments with disastrous consequences would attend the state police. But today I think differently. I think differently, Mr. President. Today I believe that the state police is inevitably important. And the difference is very clear. While the federal police will be operating from an outside-in perspective, the state police will be operating from an inside-out perspective. They understand the nooks and crannies of the very, the geopolitics they find themselves. In fact, I believe that beyond the state, that is hate speech, Mr. President. Beyond the states, the local governments must be taken into this consideration for proper policing. Because every geopolity in this country is part of a local government. If that happens, I'm sure a lot of these insurgencies will be nipped in the bud. Finally, Mr. President, all the criminalities that are perpetrated in Nigeria are becoming increasingly international. That is the reality. And so the sophistication is growing every day. I have heard colleagues talking about recruiting more men. That makes sense. But no matter how many people we recruit, so long as the means and measures adopted are analog, these criminals that have become digital will outpace us. And I don't think it's a matter for shame. China just had this virus pop up. Initially, they thought they could handle it alone. As of today, they are opening their doors to international support. The way this country is now, I think we should open our doors effectively to international cooperation, where the best ways and means of tackling insecurity would be availed us. Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished engineer.
Let me lend my voice very seriously. And with due respect to our colleagues in this chamber. When we are discussing issues of this magnitude, we should handle it with every sense of patriotism, particularly as expected of us by Nigerians. Where we have to put in sentiments, particularly extreme partisanship, to be unfortunate. So, Mr. President, when yesterday you mentioned that we are going to discuss security issues, a lot of us went back home to go and really have deep reflections on this issue. You will recall that in the Senate, one of the areas of clash that we had with the SY Inspector General was this increasing insecurity in various parts of the country. At the end of the day, the DIG operations appeared before us, and we called the service chiefs in turns and they appeared before us. And the last to come was the NSA, National Security Advisor. It was when the National Security Advisor came here and spent 3 hours with us. We had deep knowledge, the problems we have about the organization of our security apparatus. Mr. President, the question, do we have Nigerian Army? Yes. Do we have the Nigerian Navy? Yes. Do we have Nigerian Police Force? Yes. Do we have the DSS? Yes. Who coordinates security in this country? Nobody has been able to answer that. Is it the NSA? Is it the Chief of Defense Staff? Is it Mr. President himself? All the revelations that were made by the NSA very clearly show to us that there was no cooperation among the security agencies. To date, that issue has not been resolved. So if you go and increase their budget to high heavens, and you give them everything that they want, and there is no interagency cooperation, we are joking. Only a few days ago, I saw the CDS organizing a forum where they were talking about cooperation among the security agencies. I looked around, I didn't see the NSA. And the same NSA came and told us this. Mr. President must know that the NSA, if it's the NSA that is advising on security issues, the NSA must be able to coordinate all the security outfits. That is lacking. Mr. President, Senator Amos will mention something. If we must cure this issue, we know it is Fulani herdsmen and all of that. These are stories. There is no Fulani man in Nigeria that will kill another Fulani man because there is relationship. There is no Muslim that will kill a Christian because we have relationship. The way they murder our people will show to you that majority of these killings, the way they are carried out, you will know that these people have no relationship with us. Therefore, this movement from our northern frontiers, from Niger, from Chad, from Mali, let us try one thing. Let us take care of these our borders, so that the influx of the foreigners who come to perpetrate these evil acts, with some of their few collaborators in Nigeria, we can contain that. If we don't do that, just like we are doing now, closing our borders to the importation of all sorts of goods, if we can restrict people from coming to this country, we'll try that and we'll see. If we are able to, whatever we want, whether state police, community police, town police, local government police, all these ones are going to be rhetorics if there is no proper organization and strategy. If we don't do that, we are wasting time. Then finally, Mr. President, we know the media has been awash, particularly when you watch televisions in the morning. If we are pretending that there is no form of restiveness in the armed forces, then we are deceiving ourselves. Because the service chiefs, the Armed Forces Act, all of them, they have quoted them, that these service chiefs have overstayed. We don't want to choose for Mr. President, that is the prerogative. But if it is true that these service chiefs, after we confirm them, over 5 years ago, they are still on the saddle, I have no apologies. They have done very well, they have overstayed their welcome, they are bereft of ideas. Others should come in. Thank you very much, Mr.
Senator Gabriel Suso.
There must be diversity. Anybody who wants state police should be allowed to have state police. It's not a uniform thing. The people who can do it, let them do it. People who don't have to do, cannot do it, forget it. We have variants of a way of doing things. That's the beauty of democracy under a federal system of government. The second issue is, I want to raise here, the internationalization of the local conflict in Nigeria. We have to really look out and see what's happening. Whether there are some countries out there who don't want Nigeria, the dominance we are having in the West Africa, and they're afraid that if we are allowed alone, we can extend in Africa, and they want to keep us busy. The issue here is not just about Nigeria. There are foreign countries that are exploiting the trouble in this country. And if we don't sit down properly and address that issue, Mr. President, doing shuttle diplomacy to such states, such countries outside Nigeria, we may not be solving a problem. The Boko Haram are the way they're having the ammunition and all that. You don't tell me they buy it in the local markets. People are bringing it from other foreign countries. Let us find out that that's the business of intelligence. Let us look at that and see how we can handle the issue. The other issue I want to say is that the ECOWAS protocol that permits all West African countries to move should be addressed. We'll look at that issue critically. If we don't discuss and look at the ECOWAS protocol that guarantees the free movement of people across borders, we will be at risk because many people are exploiting that and are giving Nigeria a very big issue security-wise. The other issue is the entry without visa. And then when you enter, you start having, we have to look at that vis-a-vis the ECOWAS protocol. If we don't look at this issue critically, we will be doing a disservice to this country so that we can move ahead. The other issue I also want to talk is about employment. You see, on either hand is a devil's workshop. We have so many people who are unemployed. If we don't go and address the issue of how this country will start getting into productive business, into manufacturing, into doing things, we will go nowhere. We will have to find it. If the private sector is not taking the lead, because it's their duty. It's the duty of government to create an enabling environment for them to thrive. If they are thrived down, they can now get into all those issues. Not into buying and selling. No country moves further as to its GDP through buying and selling. So we will have to look at this issue. Let government come back to the state governments be empowered. Let them start all those moribund industries and manufacturing that have been closed so that we create jobs for our people. We know that we used to, before we have Kano, the pyramids of the Grand North. We know we have Kaduna Textiles. We know we have Oduduwa factory in the distance. Why are they not working? Let us address the issue to create employment. If we don't do so, we'll be wasting our time here. And the time bomb is ticking. The other issue I have to say is that we have raised the issue of talking to Mr. President about the service chiefs. I feel so bad about discussing this issue here. Because no government wants to be stampeded to take action. It will appear that if tomorrow, I don't know his mind, this Senate doesn't know his mind, what he wants to do with the service chiefs. But no government wants to be stampeded into taking action. I don't know what we are doing here today. Whether if Mr. President watches it tomorrow, he will say, well, I have planned this thing because we have taken it over here, then why he is not going to do it. So that it won't appear as we are pushing him. But I still have to sound a cautionary note here. That the Senate is only doing this. If the government comes up and do something urgently, maybe the House of Reps will not join us. When the House of Reps joins us and listen, it will worsen the matter. Let the government be timeless in taking action about this. If they do so, it will be well for all of us here. Thank you so much.
Senator Abraham.
The agenda for you and all of us for this period. I was amazed because you brought them out in order of priority and in order of necessity, starting with security. Because if there's no security, PIB will not work. If there's no security, election will not work. And today, you are demonstrating that. And you see that you have received a lot of accolades for that singular action. The accolade is not for you alone. It's for you and all of us. So I encourage you. Your Excellency, we have discussed this in severally. Security. I remember once when we were discussing it, one retired general of the APC who sits there, who helped me when I was governor to overcome insecurity in my state, mentioned the issue of GSM. And you agreed with him. Because this GSM is the greatest facilitator of security. Insecurity anywhere, especially in terms of kidnapping. And I think it was because of that movement that we made that the NCC started registering our SIM cards. But nevertheless, that one has not worked. I therefore support Senator Alero, what he has said, because he's talking from experience. I had that experience, Your Excellency, when I was governor. We had to employ tracking machine. The trackers will track the kidnapper to the place he is using his GSM. But the problem we had, in the whole of the southeast, we had only one tracking machine in Enugu. So if you have problem in Abia, you apply to DSS. DSS will apply to Enugu. When you reach there, they will tell you, the thing is in use in Ebonyi, wet. Or it is in use in Anambra, wet. When you continue waiting, time is going. So I am suggesting that a lot of trackers should be bought and distributed. And that time we had the problem also of who will purchase. We told the police to bring. They started bringing in estimates, concocted estimates, and we left it. But then, as of now, I know that there are modern equipments that are better than trackers. We can go for them and buy them. The federal government will buy them, distribute to the states. It will help in curtailing kidnapping. Your Excellency, secondly, I am talking from experience. You see, when I was governor, I have not started, I say 1 minute. When I was governor, Your Excellency, we had this vigilante. I don't know whether it is different from community policing or what. We had a vigilante backed by the State House of Assembly law. And they were working under the police. They were carrying arms, but not automatic weapon. They were carrying cartridge arms. And these are boys from the locality. They know the terrain. And they helped a lot in fishing out these people. And I encourage states who can do that to do the same. Today, our governor has rebranded it, calling it Homeland Security. And it is working for us. And I believe that what works for Abia will also work for another state. So it is another point. Your Excellency, let me say also that some of our security agents, I'm not against their socializing. Sometimes they go to beer parlors. They have plans of attack. When they go there, they will not know when they drink and this, they will reveal. They will say, tomorrow we are going to deal with these people here. The thing will filter to those people. And they will come back and attack the people who are coming to attack them. That is not good for us. Excellency, also, as far as I'm concerned, the IGP has capacity. He has capacity, the present IGP. His only problem is funding. If we give him money, he will do better. If we fund him, he will give better. You see his budget, what is normally released every year. There's nothing to write home about. If we increase his money, the money that is given to the military, if they share it half and give some to IGP, he will do better. He will do better. I believe in that, Your Excellency. Yes, I'm coming.
You can round up now.
Okay, it's okay. Finally, Your Excellency, I agree with you that we should invite the IGP so that he will come and tell us the modalities of this community policing. Some of us don't even, we join community policing, we don't know what it's all about. Let him come and tell us what it is. We bring our own ideas and see whether it is better than this state police, so that we know the path that we follow for our betterment. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Senator Ishaku Abo.
I represent Rivers West. I'm from Rivers State. Mr. President, I've listened carefully to all the contributions made by my various colleagues. And I want to add that, to start with, the tenure of the security chiefs expired a long time ago. They have done their bit. I mean, they've been on this job for quite a while, and I'm sure most of us will agree that at the time when they came into position, things were really bad. They've done their bit, and their tenure has expired. So really, they are illegally occupying the seats they are occupying. So it would be nice, or it would be good for government to look at allowing the security chiefs go and bring in new people to add vigor to the fight against security. Besides, like my colleague has said, yes, I think we are complaining about security, policemen not being enough. I think all of us and most Nigerians should actually stop using police as private security and let these police people go out and do their job to increase the. Then I mean, like we can. I mean, or they recruit more. I mean, I know that there has been an approval to recruit additional 10,000 police. Nobody really knows because every day you hear there's a court case about that recruitment. There's need for us to make sure that recruitment is finalized so that we can increase the number of policemen we have on our roads. Mr. President, I'd like to look at one area of this issue of insecurity in this nation, the collateral damage that happens to Nigerians, which in most cases when we discuss security issues we don't look at. The damage to lives, properties, what happens to those people, and then of course the vulnerable people in Nigeria, the women, the children. We have so many women raped in almost every attack. You have women raped, you have children who are orphaned, and really as a nation we haven't done anything to those people. We just leave them. There has been no well put together plan to take care of the collateral damage that comes out of all this insecurity that we're having in our nation. And I think we should include that so that at least we can make sure that those who have suffered from this collateral damage, especially the vulnerable people, are taken care of. Thank you very much, Mr.
Senator Matthew.
To say that one of the cardinal objectives of the government is to provide security for its citizens. And where that fails, no matter the achievement of such a government, it will not be good. Nigeria, the giant of Africa, has been brought to its knees because of insecurity. A lot have been said. My own opinion is first that we must identify what are the causes. What causes insecurity? What are the factors that brings about insecurity in Nigeria? Mr. President, the factors that contribute to insecurity in Nigeria majorly has to do with religious intolerance. It has to do with poverty. It has to do with unemployment of our teeming youth. It has to do with struggle for resources. Just last week, my community youths demonstrated for non-inclusion of the oil-producing community into the core community to have what is due to them. If I did not step in on time by today, I don't know what would have happened in my community. I'm talking about the Oro Nation in Akwa Ibom State. We need to identify these causes and then get government to play its own role to ensure that our teeming youths have what to do, are gainfully employed. And when we identify these causes, we must also know what are the consequent effects. The effect borders on what we are talking about: kidnapping, killings, destruction of properties, and so on. What are we to do? What are the ways forward? It's not quarreling with ourselves. It's not finding fault on each other. What are we expected to do as a people, as a government, and as legislators. We have talked about the community police. Perfect. There's nothing wrong with community police. Most people are saying no. When we look at what is happening in other climes, America, we have the sheriffs, we have the police, and then we have the FBI. What stops our nation from evolving? Let's gather the people and enable them with the law, appropriate law, to ensure that each state, each local government have people set aside to ensure that nobody crosses from another area to come and cause mayhem or destruction to the area. If we tackle it this way, I believe we'll have the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Distinguished Senator Smart Ademi.
Mr. Senate President, I was simply referring to the beginning of our discussion. But my concern is that today we are talking about our nation's security, when at this time of our generation we should be talking about technological development and things other developed countries of the world are doing. It's unfortunate. But when I heard my brother from Adamawa spoke, my heart bled. And when I see what I see in videos about what happened in Niger State, I get more worried seeing Nigerians looking helpless, being murdered and butchered like chicken, and with the belief that they cannot be helped. That's a very serious situation we have found ourselves in our country. But truth be told, Mr. President, our country is going through an extreme danger of insecurity. And God forbid, we must never be judged as a generation that has failed, or as leaders that have failed to guarantee security and welfare of their people. While we are concerned about the current security situation, I'm more concerned about Nigeria in 10 years' time. When these 10.3 million out-of-school children, in 10 years' time, there will be 20 years, we will graduate to another improved form of Boko Haram. That's the more serious time we're looking at. So we must act quickly now under the present situation which this ugly condition points out to us, by first and foremost accepting responsibility as leaders, as a people, as a nation, and not to blame anyone else, but to take responsibility. As it stands right now, if in 10 years' time nothing is done about these out-of-school children, we are going to have 10 million militants with maybe 500,000 police force. That again is another problem we have to look at now. Mr. President, there is a correlationship between poverty and insecurity. And there's no other causative other than poverty arising from unemployment, joblessness of our youths. So these two are like husband and wife. You cannot treat the other this without the other. My appeal, therefore, in providing solution, there are two types of solution that I would like to provide. The immediate solution and the long-term solution. Distinguished senators have spoken here loudly on the need to change the entire or re-engineer the entire security apparatus in Nigeria. That's given. I think Mr. President should take a bold step and fire the fireable and save the savable, that Nigeria might begin to rebuild confidence in the entire security network. Again, command and control must be established. Today, we do not know who is actually responsible for the command and control. The Office of National Security Advisor in any civilized country should take up their responsibility to manage the security affairs of a nation. That seemed to be lacking about command and control. And today, we do not know when any arm of government or any security agency have failed. But rather, the police will blame the army blame the navy blame the air force blame the police will blame the vigilante, and all that. So we must hold somebody responsible in this country if we have to get it right. I'm talking about state policing. If you like, call it any name. For as long as the attitude of people does not change, it will amount to the same. I think people misunderstand what we mean by state policing. State policing means, or community policing, simply means strengthening police at the community level. Because these police, whether they are state or community, they are still police. Police does not mean anyone who is called Nigerian police. Police is police once we're able to police. So we shouldn't put more emphasis about state police or community police. What we are saying, strengthening the police at community level and at the state level. Mr. President, why we say so? I overheard here we discussed about blaming, but let me say, in curing the headache, you don't have to cut the head. Because if someone is sick, he has headache, I think the best way to stop the headache is by cutting his head. You have not cured the headache. You have cured and killed. So let's change doctors where possible and change prescriptions.
That's a problem. That's a problem to be solved. I think this Senate can be referred to those elders. And as elders, we will not ask for now who put the fire. But let us ask how to put off the fire. I think that is the trend I'm going. But in following that trend, I will give us some stark realities. And then I will also make my suggestions. First, every evil, either by insinuation or by other actions, begat other evils. And every wickedness produces its own kind in several ways. I know that at the point we are, I believe most of us are religionists. Either we are Muslims or we are Christians. So I make some references, Mr. President, within my 3 minutes. Anyone that sows the wind will reap the whirlwind. We Nigerians, maybe not me, maybe not Mr. Senate President, but sowed this evil wind. Today, we are only reaping the fruit of what we sowed. This wind, by the grace of God, will go away. It will not be there forever. But, Mr. President, I think it's not time to lament or blame each other because we have a matter to solve now. So I want to go straight to what I think we should do to provide solutions. The first is this. As a people, because we have sown the evil seed and we are reaping the fruit of it, all of us, therefore, we should go back to God. Our faith is not needed. We should go back to God as a country, and say we are sorry. I have seen such examples in the Bible. We will confess our sins and ask God to forgive us and help us. 2 Chronicles 20:20. It is time to repent. Mr. President, even as we are talking here, instead of providing solution, we'll be quarreling here. That is the mindset of the wicked people. Yes. So whatever we say, either it is good or it is bad, you note it. In case there be something good that can come out of the bad ones. The second issue I will raise is this, Mr. Senate President. You will recall, in 2007 or early 2008, when the militancy issue was raging in the Niger Delta region, as a people, we brought up a motion here, led by Senator Henry Kinokobiri, Many of us from the region were part of that motion. And you will recall our sincere deliberation without looking at political parties. Then, I was in the People's Democratic Party as I am now. I was on that side. Lekbobiri was on that side. James Manager was on that side. We brought the motion against what our government is doing that they are not doing very well. And you know, after that motion, we had a retreat in Port Harcourt. And then after we visited all the states. And we invited prominent Nigerians who were experts to advise us, and then we take from them and get our community. And you will recall, it was that I was sent to the then President Yar'Adua, and through it, more presidents were involved, and then finally, they gave amnesty to those who are disturbing. At least today, I can say it is about 70% or more reduced in that area. So, I also heard that in the last Senate, you chaired a committee, Mr. President, that talks on the same matter. The same matter. The report is there. What do we do with that report? Because if we have a problem and then they come by the solutions and then they are not used, we have a problem. So my suggestion is again, against a committee of the Senate, maybe it might take the day, but let the entire Senate go on an emergency retreat and get experts all over the world and Nigeria who can advise us on what to do. Because our security personnel have been overwhelmed. They have been overwhelmed. When a man gives advice on one solution and it's not yielding results, rather more things are happening, then there is a problem. We have to review the security architecture of this country and see whether what we have on ground now is really working and helping us. If it was working, Mr. President, I'm sure anyone will stop me, I will stop. But if it is working, in 2015-16, when we heard that Boko Haram has been conquered, has been defeated, they wouldn't be there. When we heard S-men have been chased away, it will not be there. But rather, Boko Haram will give back to S-men, S-men will give back to bandits, bandits will give back to kidnappers. It is overwhelming our security institutions. Let us review whether what we have now on ground is still competent enough to secure the Nigerians. Mr. President, I agree with Senator Lero that state policing is not too adequate for now because some states are not paying salary. But some states can pay. If they can pay Amatekun, is it what they call it? If they can pay that one, call it any name. We refuse state police, but in every state, either we have a brigade doing the same work, or Amatekun is doing the same thing. Just call several names. It is good that we have a control. We bring all these state organizations that are looking after, are taking the role of a state police, and give them a name, amend the constitution, and stand by state police, so that our people will be saved. Finally, I'll come back again. Mr. President, if you have sinned against the land, let us confess for forgiveness and repent. Thank you very much.
The timekeeper, Deputy Chief Whip, I think you are not doing your work well. Because I suggested that after 2 minutes, you give a warning signal. And you are not supposed to talk to me and say the man has, you tell the person that he has only 1 minute left. So I think you need to appear again. Senator Sahabiau.
Thank you, Mr. President. I represent Abia South in this hallowed chamber. Mr. President, I need to thank you first by ensuring and making sure that you worked with us to put security topmost today, and that we're going to do everything that we can, each and every one of us, to discuss this problem. When I was coming, Mr. President, this morning, I saw the newspaper headline of this day. Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, expresses shock at the level of violent crime. In other words, Mr. President was expressing surprise But in accordance to our rule 5313, I will not go into that, but I will only say, Mr. President, in pidgin English, this surprised me.
Minority Leader, there should be no surprises, just go straight to the vote.
You have told us that on this solemn day that we're discussing this matter, that we may not at any point be partisan. And I want to tell you, Mr. President, if you didn't insist that we will not be partisan, I would have called out the presidential spokesman, Femi Adesina, who, when the CAN leaders complained about the killing of a priest, he turned around and said that the CAN was acting like a political party. Now that we are talking about it here, let me hear him say that all of us are acting like a political party when somebody is complaining about these incessant deaths in this country. Mr. President, because we have to get to the root of this matter, I can only say one thing. Those who live by propaganda will die by propaganda.
Minority Leader, I really don't like what I'm doing, but I'm forced to. The issue before us and what concerns every single Nigerian today is the insecurity that is so pervasive. So I will still urge you that please, let's contribute in such a manner that we're able to get solutions. I'm not saying you cannot say what you want to say, but let's get solutions. What is the way forward? Because we need to take very urgent and immediate decisions and get across to the other side. So you may continue. In fact, you have 2 more minutes. No, you can still. Anyway, this is a minority leader, so there is a discount for him. Go ahead, minority leader.
Mr. President, we are very serious here. This is a matter of life and death. And I was building up to something. And I will say what I was building up to very simply. Boko Haram has been defeated. Nigeria is now safer. Everything was being done to make sure that the hard work that was supposed to be done in securing Nigeria was not done, because certain people did not do their work and preferred to cover the eyes of Nigerians with propaganda. That's why I said that at the beginning. But let me go on, Mr. President, to say this. All the time that we wasted in Nigeria trying to find all these excuses for non-performance has now come to stare us in the face. Reality is no respecter of persons. And it is the reality that we are facing now. Senator Sani Musa shouting every day that his people were being killed in Niger. We just took one from Jos, a student who was murdered by a Boko Haram person in full view of everybody with a pistol. And the Boko Haram person was somebody that was more, almost, he's not up to 9 years or 10 years old. And we are told that they have been defeated. Now, to go to the fact of what do we do? Mr. President, we have heard from the newspapers today where you have said and suggested, and they are quoting you to say, oh, well, we're going to call the IG, we're going to talk about the community policing, we're going on that way. Mr. President, Nigeria did not elect the IG. We did not elect the chief of staff. We did not elect the Joint Chiefs. We did not elect the National Security Advisor. We elected the government of APC in 2015 and re-elected them in 2019. The reason why we re-elected them was that they continued to tell us that because they had the key to security, and the whole Nigeria voted them in 2015, and I agree with that. And I'm saying, Mr. President, when you want to deal with a matter, you go to the head. So we will go to the government and ask this government to resign because they can no longer do anything in this country.
Mr. Minority Leader, I know. Okay. Please, Minority Leader, let me remind you once again that Nigerians voted for APC in 2015, and because they saw improvement in their lives, they voted APC again in 2019. I don't want us to be partisan, and I will advise against hate speech in this chamber.
Mr. President, in conclusion, Mr. President, in conclusion, Mr. President, I need your attention. Mr. President, in conclusion, yes, Nigerians voted a government into power. And that government even said, if we don't perform, stone us. We are going with the stones to stone them now because they are no longer. Mr. President, what you want is a solution. We are giving you the solution.
I think the Minority Leader, distinguished colleagues, the situation in this country is such a serious situation that our debate should be tailored towards ensuring that we are able to get solutions. Senator Abdullah Adamu.